Okay, today we are learning quick and dirty ways of transferring images and words so that we can layer images and words over colors, over pictures, and use that in our art or even in our projects. One of the really easiest ways of transferring an image is using a photocopied picture, so it could be your photocopied drawing or text that you have photocopied. It has to be photocopied. It can't be inkjet. So you just have to remember that it has to be photocopied. So what you're going to do is you're going to take packing tape, and it usually helps if you have a partner, and you will probably quickly see why. And you take a strip of packing tape and measure it to about a little bit bigger than what you need, but don't waste it. And I'm just going to stick it to the end of the table here, or your partner can hold it so you don't lose the end of the packing tape because it is invisible and almost impossible to find. You have to be careful because in this process you cannot have bubbles, air bubbles, on your tape. If you get a little bit, it's not too bad, but it just looks better without them. I'm going to hang it so that maybe I'll put this sideways so you see better. I'm going to hang it so it looks like a U, and the middle of it is going to touch my image, and I'm going to slowly lower it down. And I will show you later what happens if you don't. So I'm going to take another piece, and usually it helps if your friend is holding on to the tape for you and sticking it to the table or sort of folding it over for you. You have to overlap the first piece. I'm overlapping it by about 1 centimeter. And I'm going to lay it down. And what happens, sometimes even I do this, I will forget and I will stretch it. And what happens is when you stretch it, and I'm still remembering to overlap, when you stretch it, you'll get all these wrinkles in it. And of course, when you transfer, you won't have a very nice image. So I've sort of got most of my picture that I want to transfer covered. I'm going to cut away the sticky part of the picture because it's really hard to work with all this sticky tape. So I'm going to sort of eliminate what I don't need. And then I'm going to burnish it. And burnish it just means polishing. And what you're doing in this process is getting the ink or the toner to stick to the tape. And you're going to put and I'm using the side of a spoon. You could use the back of a paintbrush. You could use your nail. So spoons just seem to cover it faster. And this is why there are no spoons left in the staff room because I have them all in the art room. Sorry, guys. And then I'm going to dip it into a bucket of hot water. So now I can do this with a picture. I could do this, let's say, with words. So let's say you wrote a poem for language arts, and you photocopied it, and your teacher said, well, tie it in with an image. So maybe you found a beautiful picture that you wanted to put your poem on top of. I can take my poem, I can take the words, I can tape them, I can put them in water, and we will show you in a minute. And I can create a transparent copy of my poem that I can lay over a drawing or a photograph that I have that works with, whoops, and it doesn't help when you cut away all the words of your poem. Oops. All right, so here we have, this has been sitting for a couple of minutes. So what you need to have, newspaper or newsprint. I'm going to pull this out of the water. And I'm going to start, you might scratch it a little bit, and I'm going to start rubbing away the back. And the longer you leave it in the water, the better the backing will come away. And I can just re-wet it. I have lots of buckets in the art room if you need to borrow them. For me, the only thing you have to watch is that all these little pieces of rolled up paper that end up in the bucket, that you pour them down the toilet rather down the sink because they will totally clog your sink. Okay, so just remember that, or have one large bucket where everything is disposed of. So here we go. This works really, really quickly. And I'm not going to go too long here. And I have pretty much, if I'm really fussy, I can get rid of all of it because there's a little bit of whitish fluff that's left on the back of it. But let's see what we can do with this. So I'm just going to dry it off. It will be still sticky. The tape actually will still stick a little bit. So what can I do with this? Well, if I had a painting, right, and I wanted to take my image, I can layer it on top, and it is totally transparent. And it's even sticky, it'll stick. If you want to, you can use a little bit of glue from a glue stick to stick it down. And you can start layering images like that. The one from the magazine, so let's say I took a picture from a magazine, like this, you can take, and I did the same thing, I used tape. And again, somewhere near the edge I will scratch away a little bit. And just to get it started, you don't want to ever start scratching away in the middle of your picture, because sometimes what happens is you're scratching away the ink. So you have to be careful. The idea is, right, not to rub too hard, because the ink is sticking to the tape, the glue in the tape. But you can, and I'll work really quick here. You can create, basically you can create a sticker pretty much of any image. Like I said, except anything from a magazine, anything that's been photocopied, but you can't do it from an inkjet printer because the water will dissolve the printing ink off the inkjet printer. So let's get this on really quick. So here you go. And I have, as you can see, a completely transparent. I could put her over the picture. I have a transparent picture that is see-through, so you can sort of see through it. Okay. So another way of transferring letters is really fun. If you want to have a subtle transfer, right, something that's a little bit more blurry, if you want to have something blurry in the background and then maybe have something a little bit more crisp on the front. So I've got her picture and I've got the blurry word style kind of hidden behind her. So it's sort of hinting at the fact that she's stylish or she has style. You use a wax paper transfer. So I'm going to, this works only with, sorry, I guess I'll show you this. This works only with newspaper and wax paper and a spoon. And so what I'm going to do, maybe I will transfer an entire word. So I'm just using the edge of my spoon and I'm rubbing. And again, wax paper is, the wax is greasy, the ink is oil-based. Grease sticks to grease. So the ink from the newspaper is going to stick to the underside of the wax paper. And then I can, you have to be really careful not to move your paper. And I'm doing this very fast, so you can do this more carefully. So I can copy off a whole word. The other thing you can do is you can, if you don't find the word that you need, let's say I've got big spaces for big sculptures, but I want to make the word bag. So I'm just going to take a capital B over here, and then I'm going to move it over to where I have an A, and then I'm going to move it over to where I have a G. And then there's something lumpy under this, so this is not going to work. Oops. Big blob of paper. But it's going to be messy, but here you have the word bag. So I can make any word I want. And I can, sometimes it's really fun if you mix different letter sizes, different letter styles. I can also copy a color picture. So if I happen to like this face, if you happen to have a comic at home and you want to transfer part of a comic, although it will lift off some of the ink off your comic. But I can take this and I can transfer this onto here. And you get this sort of very fuzzy, almost antique looking transfer. So students and teachers who are working in their creativity journals, well, that's not very well done at all, but it will work if you do. Let's try one. Let's try a better one. We'll do another one. Pretty much, if you see the picture on the wax paper, it will transfer well. There we go. So that's how you can transfer images. That works really well for science projects, language arts projects, social projects. if you want to really impress your teacher and have a little artistic bang with your text and your images, try this one out. Okay, one last thing you might want to do to add a little punch to your words or your images is to paint over it with watercolor. So oil and water don't mix. Wax is oily, so wherever you put the wax, it will make the paper waterproof. So if I wanted to, I could lightly put a watercolor over it. The words will sort of be waterproof or water resistant, and then I can dab away, although some of the little drops that you see are really nice. And you could sort of color in a background around the words that you wrote down. So let's see what happens when we put the word style. Yeah, so it will sort of, you sort of play with that. And you're creating a wash, so it has to be pretty watery paint. You don't want it to be too strong. And then it creates a nice background.